Water. Today's lesson is about water, and what could be more important than water? The setting, of course, is perfect. I have the Black Sea behind me, and I have a huge lake in front of me, so we are surrounded by water on this thin strip of sand. There is a lot to know about water in the depopulation era. What could be more important than the most basic element of life? Perhaps air is even more vital to life than water, because we can't survive without air for more than 3 or 4 minutes, and we can't survive without water for more than about 7 days. It is a basic element of life, which is why the depopulation lobby misuses it to accomplish its demographic targets. You see, you cannot reach the entire global population unless you adulterate the water in one way or another. And our genocidal governments, with the aid and under the direction of the United Nations and the military-industrial complex, uses 5 methods of turning water into a depopulation weapon to sterilize and sicken us. First, the oldest and perhaps still the most widespread is adding fluoride or silicofluorides to the water. Fluoride being of course, the most potent sterilisant known to man, also among the cheapest, and in addition wreaks havoc with human health. The second method is that of plastic packaging. Plastic, of course, leaches bisphenols, quaternary ammonium, and oleamide, among other things, into the water contained in a bottle, in a plastic bottle. The third method is that of artificial sweeteners, which is why soft drinks are ubiquitous now, and they're all sweetened with artificial sweeteners, being aspartame, which is sold as Equal or NutraSweet or Natura Taste, sucralose, which is sold as Splenda, acesulfame K, which is sold as Ace K or Sunette or Equal, Spoonful, Sweet One or Sweet and Safe, saccharin, which is sold as Sweet and Low, and Sweet Twin. Then there is xylitol, sorbitol, and of course the ubiquitous corn syrup, which is also obtained from genetically modified crops. So it is a depopulation poison in more than one way. The fourth method is that of sterilizing plants, which are added as taste enhancers or flavors. The prime examples being stevia, wormwood, sometimes even oregano. And the fifth and the last method of adulterating the water to turn it into a depopulation weapon is that of adding larvicides and insecticides to the water. Nasty poisons such as pyroproxyfen, cypermethrin, and deltamethrin. Depending on where in the world you are affected by at least one of these 5 different methods of turning water into a depopulation weapon. Fluoride or silicofluorides are added to the municipal water of some 25 countries around the world, as well as being left in the water of countries where fluoride occurs naturally, as well as in countries that use desalination plants to obtain drinking water. Worldwide, around 355 million people are receiving artificially fluoridated water. In addition, around 50 million people receive water naturally fluoridated at a concentration at around 1 milligram per liter, which is the level recommended by the World Health Organization to accomplish its necessary sterilizing targets. Plastic affects more than 90% of all bottled water and beverages throughout the world, be it in the developed or developing world. Artificial sweeteners affect more than 80% of all soft drinks throughout the world. Sterilizing plants are added to bottled beverages. They affect a relatively small percentage of bottled water and soft drinks, but a large percentage of beer and alcoholic drinks. And larvicides and pesticides affect the water in many tropical and subtropical countries where the depopulation lobby adds these poisons to water sources under the pretext of combating mosquitoes, so-called vector control. Because water is the most important weapon of depopulation in the arsenal of our governments and the depopulation lobby, there are a lot of no's that we have to mind when it comes to water. First of all, no fluoridated water. Why? Well, because fluoride does nothing to prevent tooth decay, as it is being asserted to justify putting it in our drinking water, and instead destroys the entire endocrine system, causing or exacerbating all chronic diseases that already affect 60% of us and kill us prematurely. Second, no tap water that is not distilled or filtered through reverse osmosis, triple reverse osmosis, or distillation, or that is not derived by extraction from air, which is a new technology developed recently by companies such as EcoBlue. Why? Because we don't know whether the water that comes from our taps flows through PVC lines or through water mains lined with BPA, with bisphenol A, which contaminate the water. And because water that flows through miles and miles of pipes, regardless of material, is chock full of heavy metals. And because the vast majority of water sources nowadays are contaminated with pesticides, petrochemicals, and pharmaceutical compounds that no water treatment plant will or can remove. 3, no water or beverages in plastic containers, metal cans, aluminum cans, or Tetra Paks. Why? Because they either leach bisphenols or formaldehyde into the water. Plastic containers and metal cans, of course, they're made of bisphenols, and bisphenols adulterate the water. And Tetra Paks leach formaldehyde into the water, and you don't want to ingest that either. 4th, no artificially sweetened water. Why? Well, because all artificial sweeteners cause obesity and diabetes. They are primary depopulation poisons. And 5th, no water sweetened or flavored with plants known for their sterilizing qualities, and I need not explain why. 6th, no water treated with larvicides and insecticides, not unless, of course, you want your baby to be born with a deformation, a malformation, or with microcephaly, a shrunken head, as has happened to the children of Brazil who are subjected to these poisons through the drinking water. And 7, no desalinated water unless it is either distilled or filtered through reverse osmosis or distillation, since governments will spike desalinated water with the fluoride that occurs naturally in the seawater. Forget about carbon filters or block filters. I can tell you that right off the bat. They don't do anything. Carbon filters and block filters are useless, as they cannot remove fluoride and only partially remove lead and other contaminants. And BPA and other bisphenols cannot be filtered out with any system. I suspect the depopulationists are suppressing the technology capable of filtering bisphenols from the water, but there are now efforts underway to see how and if it can be done. In the meantime, the USA, Canada, the Netherlands, Spain, France, and Germany are particularly endangered by BPA leached from epoxy resins used to refit old pipes. Until a way is found to filter BPA from water, it is best to drink glass-bottled mineral water and distilled water if you live in the city, and must assume that your tap water flows through BPA-lined water lines. If you live in the country and are on your own water well, then a 3-way reverse osmosis filter or a water distiller is what you need if the water is contaminated. In addition to what is added to water on purpose to sterilize the population, one must also guard against what is in the water due to pollution of the water sources, water treatment processes, and old water lines, which can contaminate the water that we drink with chlorine, lead, mercury, cadmium, pesticides, phthalates, and all kinds of other nasty stuff. Before you drink any tap water, you have to establish if it contains fluoride or silicofluorides, if it flows through bisphenol-lined water mains, if it comes from a desalination plant, and if it has been treated with larvicides. Before you drink any bottled water or beverage, you have to know all of the above, plus if it is bottled in plastic or metal cans, both of which contain BPA or other bisphenols, if it has added artificial sweeteners, all of which are endocrine disruptors and therefore depopulation poisons, and if it has been sweetened with stevia, for instance, which is a known natural sterilizer. The only safe water and beverages are those that come in glass bottles, have no fluoride added or naturally occurring, no artificial sweeteners, no stevia, no flavors, and no colorants, and did not flow through bisphenol-coated water lines before it was bottled. And of course, very few cities and towns have tap water that meets these criteria. And very few beverages are made with pure water and are not contaminated with artificial sweeteners, flavors, and colorants. That is why you must either install a three-way reverse osmosis water filtration system or drink only mineral water in glass bottles that is fluoride free. Better still, you do both, so that you cook and wash yourself with properly purified water due to a triple reverse osmosis filter, and you drink pure and tasty water bottled in glass bottles at source from pristine and protected aquifers. Another solution that is relatively cheap is to use a water distiller so you can drink and cook with safe water. But what about bottled water? And I brought a whole bunch of different brands to show you. How do we choose a bottled water that is safe? First of all, you have to be careful because not all waters are created equal. Buy only mineral water or spring water, as these come from natural springs that are protected and do not flow through municipal water lines, which can be lined with epoxy coatings that leach BPA and other phthalates before being bottled. They are bottled at source. Much of the bottled water sold nowadays is pure and simple depopulation water, as it is sold in plastic bottles and therefore poisoned with bisphenols, even if the water itself is pure before being put in the bottle. And if it is not sold in plastic bottles, it has fluoride added to the recommended level, recommended by the WHO, that is the World Health Organization. The recommended level, which is 0.4 to 0.5 milliliters per liter, in order to be a potent sterilizer, and therefore not fit for human consumption if you care about your health and the health of your children, and if you care about the perpetuation of your genetic lineage. The mineral or spring water you choose must be bottled in glass, must be fluoride free, that is to say contain zero fluoride or less than 0.1 milliliters per liter, which is considered a naturally occurring level or trace element, must come from a protected spring, and must be bottled at source and not flow through municipal water lines before being bottled. And regardless where you live, only a fraction of the bottled water sold in stores will meet these requirements. Let us now go through this selection process with the bottled water in front of me. Right off the bat, we eliminate all water bottled in plastic. So all of these, plastic, 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 and plastic. All of these bottles are poisoned with bisphenols, and all bisphenols are depopulation poisons, also known as endocrine disruptors, as scientists like to call them. And the vast majority of plastic bottles are made from polyethylene terephthalate, PET for short, which has the SPI code 1. Of course, SPI stands for Special Packaging Instruction, which is an identification code used by recyclers to know how to triage various kinds of plastics and recycle them so they don't all end up in landfills. Of course, only a very small percentage of plastics are recycled, even in countries that have very strong recycling programs, which is why you can't walk anywhere 10 or 20 steps without seeing litter on the street, or here on the beach even, in the form of a plastic bottle or a plastic container or a plastic bag of some form. All bottles made from PET, which is 99% of all plastic bottles, contain bisphenol A or some other bisphenol. And BPA has been identified as an estrogen mimicking compound since the 1930s, and is known to be particularly dangerous to pregnant women, infants and children. In the past, it was used to fatten poultry, for instance, and as a form of estrogen replacement therapy for women. If you drink out of a plastic bottle, you will ingest BPA or any of the other dozens of bisphenols, bisphenol plastics that plastics are made of, and you will become fat or obese, whether you're a man or a woman. If you drink such water while pregnant, your child will be affected for life and irreversibly. You will set up your child for obesity, sexual confusion, and a slew of developmental and chronic disorders, which is why the sane thing to do is not to drink water bottled in plastic, but to spill it. Never to buy it, because you are encouraging the destruction or aiding the destruction of the planet through pollution, through plastic pollution, not to mention the destruction of your own health. So this is complete junk. Plastic is for schmucks. Keep this line in your mind. Plastic is for schmucks. Every time you go to the store and you see 99% of all bottles of beverages, of water or soft drinks in plastic, and you want to reach out for them because it is convenient to buy that, because it is lighter, because it doesn't break, and other advantages, and because it is cheaper, of course. Resist the temptation and do not buy it, because you will destroy your own health and destroy this planet. Now, not only will you damage your health, therefore, by drinking out of plastic and give birth to sexually confused children, you will also pollute the planet. Already there is more plastic in the oceans than there is fish. And plastic does not decompose. It is not biodegradable. It just breaks down into ever smaller pieces, bits and pieces, into microplastics that are then ingested by sea life that we eventually eat. So plastic is for schmucks. Keep that in mind. Stay away from it. Those who drink from plastic are shutting down their own genetic lineages. They won't be around for more than another generation because their children will be sterile, feeble, and sick. Of course, the depopulationists discourage people from buying water bottled in glass by pricing this water 3 times higher than the same water bottled in plastic. This is the case with every water brand in front of me, and has nothing to do with economics but with geopolitics. A glass bottle is only slightly more expensive to manufacture and transport than a plastic bottle. If economics dictated the price, then a bottle of water bottled in glass would be no more than about 25 cents more expensive than the same water bottled in plastic. So let's say it would add maybe 5% to the cost. So you see, in addition to knowledge, the knowledge necessary to protect yourself and your family from depopulation poisons, the depopulationists use economics to select who dies and who lives. They exclude the poor and eliminate them from the face of the earth faster than anyone else, simply by making it financially impossible for the poor to protect themselves and their children against depopulation poisons. The second criterion to look out for when choosing your bottled water is whether the water contains fluoride or not, be it naturally occurring or added. And out of these 6 brands in front of me, 2 of which are international, this one is San Benedetto, comes from Italy, and this one, no, only one is foreign. This one is foreign. The other 2, 3, 4, the other 5 are local brands. Of these 6 brands of bottled mineral water, only one, this one, Bukovina, has added fluoride to it, to the level, of course, indicated by the World Health Organization of 0.44 to 0.5 milliliters per liter. So of these 6 companies, only one has cooperated with the depopulation lobby and has poisoned its water for depopulation purposes. And the interesting fact is that the same water, Bukovina water, flat, does not have fluoride added to it. But this one, which is carbonated, has fluoride added to it. I wrote to the company and I asked them to justify this. I asked them to stop doing this. This being a protected water, they are not allowed to do this. They're not allowed to either add or remove anything chemically from the water. So they're breaking the law, as well as, of course, poisoning us in the process, poisoning the very consumers who support this company by buying its products. Of course, I have received no response whatsoever from the company. Now, so we put this one aside as unsafe because it is contaminated with fluoride, the oldest, most efficient and cheapest depopulation poison known to man. Then we have to eliminate all of the metal cans. Of course, I couldn't find any water in metal cans because it's not sold here, but in some countries you have water sold in aluminum cans as well. And the reason you shouldn't buy that and shouldn't consume that is because all aluminum cans are lined with BPA on the inside. So BPA being the same plastic that is used to make these bottles. And while the BPA lining of metal cans will not contaminate the liquid inside as much as the liquid contained in a plastic bottle, because contamination happens at a faster rate if there is exposure to sunlight or heat. Of course, this is not exposed to sunlight. Sunlight simply does not penetrate the metal can, but the heat will make the bisphenol leach into the liquid. So do not drink this either unless you are forced to because you have nothing else to choose from. Always choose glass bottles. This is what we're left with. We're left with these 5 different brands. So this represents about 1 to 2% of the bottled water brands available in this country, Romania, and the same is true almost anywhere on Earth, because we live in a depopulation era and all nations cooperate with the UN system in the global depopulation program. If the water you drink, cook, and wash yourself with is pure, then half the battle against depopulation poisons is won. And there are only 2 ways to ensure that the water you drink is pure and depop free. A good filter, which is either a 3-way reverse osmosis filter, which is very expensive, or a water distiller, which is far less expensive, but it takes a lot of time to distill, a gallon of water. Or then there is a new technology now which obtains water from air. It extracts the humidity from the air, it turns into water. This is the latest method of obtaining pure, good drinking water and not relying on the municipal tap water. And of course, the second method is to buy and drink glass bottled mineral or spring water that is fluoride free, which is also expensive. Either way you look at it, whether you choose a water filtration system or mineral water that is bottled in glass, it is going to be far more expensive than drinking tap water or even purchasing this kind of bottled water in plastic. Plastic, as I said, is 3 times cheaper. Water bottled in plastic is 3 times cheaper than water bottled in glass. The exact same water, the exact same quantity. As you can see, there is a lot to know about water in this day and age. But since this is the most important element of life, you have to take extraordinary precaution to ensure the safety of your water. Because everything else you do, you may or may not be doing to protect yourself and your children will be useless unless the water you drink is pure and DPOP free. Thank you for your attention.